Hi, I'm Adam Sullivan. I'm the Strategic Director of Artificial Intelligence at Labcorp. And today I'm excited to talk to you about our work using machine learning and artificial intelligence at Labcorp to detect adverse diagnostic tests. So just want to tell you a little bit about Labcorp and my team. Most people know Labcorp because when you get an order from your physician to get your blood drawn, you often end up at one of our patient service centers where a phlebotomist will draw your blood, send it off, and you'll get the results back in a few days. However, Labcorp is much bigger than that. We have labs all across the country. We're internationally in terms of our drug development business as well, which helps drug manufacturers to bring their different drugs that they are developing through phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 clinical trials and actually take those to market. So Labcorp is a very large organization. And like I said, a lot of people know Labcorp from the diagnostic side, but it is much bigger than that. My team in particular, we are a team of data scientists that report into our IT organization. We've got 7 data scientists within my team. 4 of those are PhDs. We've got 7 scientific advisors that oversee our group and give us guidance on different clinical and other scientific oversight that we ask for. Our team, we've been formed for under a year, but we have developed over 850 JIRA stories that have been closed out by the team, 400 plus commits to get. And one of my favorite metrics is that we have trained over 2,000 models on Sagemaker, leveraging all the technology that Amazon and Sagemaker offer. So we'll talk a little bit more about how we are doing that. First, I want to tell you a little bit about our journey and about some of the projects that we're working on. The one project in particular we want to talk about is our ability to use our diagnostic data to identify when a patient may have an underlying condition that they may not even know about. And also thinking about, given that ability, how do we reach that patient? And there's some cool ways that we're able to do that using the different channels that Labcorp has. So with that being said, one of the things we like to think about is the how to help patients. And one of the areas that our company is very interested in is NASH. And within NASH is within the same family as non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And 25% of Americans are estimated to have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease per some of the references that we've reviewed. And we've also found that based off of that analysis, early identification of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease can save over $1,200 per patient. And the really amazing thing about that metric is that there aren't really many treatments for it. Oftentimes, when you are diagnosed with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease or NASH, the treatments are lifestyle changes. So your physician really needs to work overtime to help you to be able to make those lifestyle changes for you to start seeing changes in NASH or non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. However, within that same domain, there are lots of activity going on around can drug manufacturers develop new therapies for NASH. And we'll talk a little bit more about how that plays into using machine learning on a condition that is so underdiagnosed and not really screened for as much as it should be, as in the example of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease or NASH. So to help you think about this, if we were able to identify those patients that have a condition but maybe haven't been diagnosed with it, we can leverage machine learning and artificial intelligence to build out different ways that we can reach those patients within the Labcorp umbrella. One is through direct client outreach, and we talk to a lot of our customers who are sending labs to us to process, and a small mid-sized hospital doesn't have the margins to be able to have a team of data scientists working on a massive data set that spans the entire United States. So we really do think that it's within our mission that if we are able to develop, we can help directly within our own client outreach. And we think about the healthcare organizations, some of our value-based care initiatives, different ACOs that we work with. We really think that there's a lot of opportunity for us to be able to identify those patients and get that information back to those organizations who can actually impact those patient lives and help them lead to a healthier life. Within the middle domain, we think about clinical trial matching, and we are a CRO. We have the ability to help drug manufacturers and drug developers identify patients so that we can enroll patients who may not even necessarily know they have a condition. We really think about the inclusion and exclusion criteria. How can we take that to the next generation using machine learning to identify potential patients that may need to be screened for a condition, even though the inclusion and exclusion criteria, the way we've traditionally thought about it, would identify those patients. And finally, we think about clinical decision support, and this is really at the point of care within the physician when they're sitting there talking to the patient. How can we get that information directly back to them so that while they're in the office, they can think about their clinical decision making, and if there's a way that we can use AI to help them make more informed decisions. So, and we do have within Labcorp, we have a product called Diagnostic Assistant that can help physicians get that information about clinical decision support back very quickly to their patients. So, with that being said, to think about how this works, think about how we're using AI here, machine learning. We've got Daniel. And Daniel is a 55-year-old male who routinely has various labs ordered by his primary care physician. So we know a little bit about Daniel. Back in March of 2019, he had a CBC panel and a lipid panel. With those, we get a handful of test results back about Daniel. Fast forward a little bit, it's now June 2019, and he had a new panel ordered by his primary care physician for a BMP panel and a renal panel. Fast forward, it's now December 2019, and one of the things that our AI model, our machine learning model, has been able to do is identify that Daniel will likely test positive for NASH fibrosis on the Labcorp FiberSure test. So using that historical information, that historical vector of tests about Daniel, and there's a lot of information in there, we're able to identify that if he tests for NASH, he's going to test positive. So using the discussion we had earlier, how can we get that information back to Daniel, whether it be through his primary care physician, or enrolling in a clinical trial, or through a value-based care campaign for overall health. That's one of the really cool things about Labcorp is that we have the data to do this, we have the talent and technology to do this, and we have the channel to be able to get this information back to Daniel very rapidly. So the models that I've mentioned, we're starting off with chronic kidney disease and NASH. Chronic kidney disease is also very underdiagnosed in the United States. There's studies about just how prevalent it actually is, and to build a chronic kidney disease model from diagnostic data, we look at EGFR and ACR. Those are the two component tests that make up the diagnostic side of a chronic kidney disease diagnosis. So we're leveraging those models, and then for NASH, we're using the fibrosis score of F1 or greater to identify that somebody should be flagged for NASH. But these models they're not hypothetical. They're not sitting on a bench. They've been vetted by our data scientists and our scientific advisors that I've mentioned earlier. They've been deployed as standalone APIs, meet all the security requirements for HIPAA, and everything's been done on AWS, which we'll tell you about in just a second. So to think about how this works, we've got the inbound test of Daniel in the example we used earlier. We may have A1Cs and white blood cell and RDW and EGFR, the date that those were taken, and the result of those tests. That's the payload that's fed into our API. That's our Labcorp secure Labcorp cloud that our AI model was trained on. We had access to billions of diagnostic tests to train any one of these models. And one of the cool things is that the way we set up the API, we can tune whether the PPV or NPV to any threshold to meet the use case that we're discussing. So, for example, somebody running a clinical trial may have a different PPV threshold than, say, somebody that is working on a campaign for a value-based care initiative. So we've really set it up so that we can tune the PPV threshold. But whatever that PPV threshold is and the NPV threshold, we don't want to be over alerting physicians. We don't want them to have alert fatigue, which is always something you have to think about when you're building these types of models. So given that the threshold is reached, we identified that a patient likely will test positive for the fibrosis score, and we can flag that patient for having high risk of NASH. So it's a little bit, thinking about the payload and the API. This is how our model has been built. We have a mock-up of what this would look like in a EMR from the clinical decision support perspective. This is a pure mock-up. This isn't anything that we're actually going to production with, but it's something that one of our really great UX experts has developed to think about, within a clinical decision support application in an EMR, how would we get that information back to the physician? And we imagine that we have a AI decision support button. And when somebody is likely to have chronic kidney disease, we can flag that as abnormal. We can give them the information about the tests that were used and some of the model details and how they can interpret that model. So, and again, this, we are working with physicians to think about how this should look and feel. But just to give you a conceptual view, we imagine that, within an EMR, you should be able to click on the AI decision support button or tab and get the information about what did our model use, what were the test values that were used in that model to help them to interpret the result and identify, some of the actual metrics about in terms of sensitivity and specificity of our model for when something is declared as abnormal. To give you a little bit, we're gonna peel back the layers a little bit and give you some of how we do this. It's not scary to our team. We don't think it's a complicated process. Our data scientists are able to work, and you think about kind of on the left side, they're able to work on our de-identified data set in their own sandbox, their own Sagemaker notebooks. We keep our data stored in S3, not really pictured here, but we do use Athena and Glue to sit on top of those so that we can manage our data in S3 a little bit better. But our data scientists are able to work in notebooks to do all their manipulation. And then whenever they go to train a model, we always train in Sagemaker. So we'll kick off a container, whether it be the XGBoost container or the scikit-learn container with our own random forest or a deep learning model, the TensorFlow container. And whatever it is, our data scientists are able to just send that data, send the training script to S3 and invoke that, hey, Sagemaker, we want you to train this model. Sagemaker will train that model. Once that model's done, if we agree with the results, then we wrap it in we'll deploy that model as a Sagemaker endpoint. We'll wrap it in a Lambda function so that we can have an Amazon, then use the Amazon API gateway to allow our models to be deployed anywhere in the enterprise very quickly and very rapidly. And that fits within our enterprise strategy of deploying these services as APIs so that we can, whether it be something on the diagnostic side or something on the drug development side, we can move very quickly to get our models to production. And we'll talk a little bit about how we've done that and some of the speed. One of the things that we really love about Sagemaker is that it's a complete history of everything that we've done. It's auditable, it's deployable, and it's reproducible. And I'm showing you a real screenshot of some of the models that our data scientists have trained. And one of the really cool things about it is we know who authored the model. We know what training data they used. We know what testing data they used. We know what script was used to train the model. We know the assumptions. We know when it was trained. We know the results of those things. So every single time we train a model, because we're using Sagemaker and it's all container based, we have a complete history of every model that we've ever trained. So I feel very confident that in 2 or 3 years, if we were asked by a physician or our legal team or whatever it might be, we have a complete history of everything that we do because of the way we're using Sagemaker kind of out of the box. On the bottom right, we show one of the cool things about Sagemaker is that you can actually set your own metrics. So our team has decided that we want to be, for this particular model that we're looking at, we want to be looking at AUCs. So we can just set those up, and it's just a really simple regex pattern, and CloudWatch captures all these, and we can plot these in a dashboard in terms of our model results. So we can look at, the NASH model. We can actually watch it getting better over time as our data scientists continue to train models. So that's how we're using it, and we really like the way it's set up. It gives us a lot of flexibility, but it also has, we haven't really heard from the data scientists that they feel constrained or they feel locked down. If anything, having this, this all happens kind of on their behalf. They don't really have to do anything to be able to capture all these metrics about our models. And it's so important in healthcare that we think about these things from building models that are going to help people and not hurt people. So it's really important for our team. It's really important for our company. And Sagemaker allows us to do this very quickly. So that's one of the things that we're really pumped about. We also, and I know this is, you think about the journey of getting into machine learning, and everyone thinks you got to hop into TensorFlow and start building out models. We don't necessarily think that. We think that we like to think about models from how they perform at the end of the day. And so some models we build are TensorFlow PyTorch models, and others are XGBoost or CatBoost or Random Forest. So it really just depends on the flavor of what we're building. But one of the things that Sagemaker has allowed us to do is, before Sagemaker, we were very much in scientific mode. We had our science hats on. We trained our models on our corporate laptops. We didn't really have a way to think about live testing a model. If we built something and somebody wanted to try it out, I guess we'd send data back and forth between someone's laptop. I'm not, from a safety perspective, it doesn't even make sense. So we didn't do it. And then whenever we wanted to deploy a model, and we have done this just very few times in Labcorp's history, but we deploy models on-prem. We have to build out all the infrastructure, all the networking, everything that goes into that. Everything that goes with an on-prem installation for new hardware and deploying models. Now that we have Sagemaker, we're just built for the time spent training models. And not exaggerating, we had a model that trained for 58 seconds. And that's all the time we're actually billed for AWS. So we don't have these like crazy astronomical bills coming in from leveraging like these massive GPUs that Amazon has access to. We have a fully auditable record of who and what trained a model, which is so important to us as a team. And then finally, one of the really cool things about using Sagemaker is, after we've been able to train models, we challenged one of our junior data scientists on the team to integrate one of our APIs, one of our endpoints that we developed, into another existing service that a different team within Labcorp was building. And it was that data scientist was able to do this deployment within days. So a model, because we have the model structured in Sagemaker, we're able to deploy the endpoint, wrap the Lambda function, API gateway, and now we're connecting to new services that we didn't even think about doing in the past. So Sagemaker has been a really big value add for us. We're big fans, and we're excited to see where it continues to go moving forward. With that being said, definitely want to thank all the folks on my team that work tirelessly, and our scientific advisors to build out models that are really aiming to help patients, really aiming to help our customers. And obviously all the folks at AWS, great teams to work with, even on this presentation, but we also day to day The account managers are always willing to help us out with whatever problem we have. So just thanks to everybody that's helped us on this journey, and hopefully we'll be here back next year talking about all the cool stuff that we continue to do. So thank you very much.